What's going on, folks? Your boy again back in the building. Dr. Sean Thomas here with the Be More Today show. We are back. We are back. We are back in the building, folks. And it's been a minute, but we are here. Episode 129, if you believe it, 129 episodes of ordinary people doing extraordinary things for Be More Today. And my guest on today's show is no different. Before I get into that, Be More Today is a movement, as you already know. Our website is new and improved, BeMoreToday.com. So if you're looking for anything to inspire you to be the better version of yourself, go on our website, BeMoreToday.com, for our more merch store, the running coach stuff that's going on, the interesting things we have for our workouts in the communities. There are so many things on the site right now. BeMoreToday.com. Go on there and subscribe. You will not be disappointed by the thing that you can do anywhere you are to keep taking your steps to greatness to be the best version of you. So go out there and see what's going on. As always, the Be More Today show is a movement. We are now heard in 80 countries, over 54,000 downloads. Thanks to your level of support and your diligence to try and just to be better in all the efforts and the facets of your life. It is my pleasure to take you on this journey. And for today, our quote is very, very simple. It is by Ed Gordon. And he said, "It's not the show, it's the prep for it. No matter your field or your endeavor, your real success is based on what you put into it." I'm at a stage in my life where I have my hands in a number of different things. I'm dabbling with the physical therapy stuff. I'm dabbling in marathon training. I'm dabbling in the Be More Today madness. I'm dabbling in raising my 8-year-old daughter. And I'm dabbling at my own job doing advocacy work and physical therapy and just grooming my staff to be better at our craft. And the one thing I've seen across all boards, whether it's my work or people who are the bosses in their works as well, is that there's a certain level of expectation that things are going to be handed to someone before they can actually see success. And I'm here to, again, just to debunk that myth. It is not the show. It is the prep for it. You got to put work into all these things to be great at what you're trying to do. And whether it's putting in the 4 a.m. workouts for the marathon training that I'm doing to get to Berlin, or whether it's putting in the work behind the scenes to make sure my office runs well, or whatever it is, whatever your craft is, there are no handouts to this thing. You can be great. Everyone wants to be IG great and Facebook great, and now, Threads great and whatever else, but it takes a lot of planning and preparation behind the scenes to get there. And my guest on today's show is the embodiment of that, because he's done so many things in his community to get to where he is now. And he's not only giving back in his field of expertise, but he's giving back in his community as well. I appreciate all those things. And the guest on today's show is Peter Ivey. Now, he is an entrepreneur, a writer, an author, a speaker, and a food security activist. Born and raised in Jamaica, he divides his time between the Caribbean island and New York. And as the founder and CEO of Reggae Chefs, a culinary services company that uniquely fuses Jamaican food and cultural expression through customized events, Ivey's work as a chef and cultural ambassador of Jamaica has been featured across a variety of places, including Forbes and New York Daily News, and has been archived in the National Library of Jamaica. In 2017, Ivey founded Mission FoodPossible, a not-for-profit created to educate and feed the food insecure. As president of MFP, Ivey is committed to empowering Caribbean people to thrive on the consumption of local foods, or what he refers to as MVPs, most valuable produce. In 2019, Forbes featured the work of the not-for-profit, saying that it could be the answer to the world's hunger problem. As a food activist and entrepreneur, Ivey believes in the value of empowerment at a grassroots level. The S3 concept for entrepreneurship was developed by Ivey to promote independence and self-reliance in young people in the Caribbean and in Africa. He also conceived the food opportunities and regenerative culture movement, a circular paradigm under which food system stakeholders go one step beyond sustainability to help alleviate food insecurity. Most recently, Ivey founded P3 Culinary Kits, the Caribbean's first culinary kit for purpose-driven food industry professionals and students. And in March of 2020, Ivey authored Coronavirus, Get Out of Here, as one of the first children's books on coronavirus. The book has been included as one of UNICEF's resources to help families during the pandemic. And Ivey's also the creator of Food Secure Tales, a collection of children's books about food security. The collection has been approved by Jamaica's Ministry of Education for distribution to the nation's primary school children. And an avid writer, Ivey was also a regular contributor to Loop, the largest Caribbean news media platform. Ivey's vision is to use his entrepreneurship skills, knowledge, expertise to empower youth through self-reliance and to help sustain the global community through projects amid an eradicating poverty and hunger. Now, when not working, Peter is traveling or spending time with his son, PJ, and I love to hear that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets included, please welcome to the stage my new brethren and Jamaica's finest, Peter Ivey. Brethren, wagwan, wagwan, wagwan.
Wagwan, Dr. Sean. Thank you so much. But you forget one thing, Dr. Sean.
What's that, sir?
You forget that I'm a chef as well.
That's the most important part, sir.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Listen, I'm it's my pleasure to meet you. And the crazy thing is, a patient of ours at my job was talking about the work that she does. And literally a conversation, I'm not even her therapist. And in talking to her, that was a kind of a impromptu conversation. We started talking about Jamaica, and I have so many ties to Jamaica. One of my best friends is from Jamaica, Matthew Lynn. He's the owner of Caribbean Broilers out there in Jamaica, and does a lot of good work out there. He's from Kingston, and I've been there a number of times. I love the island, love the country, Ocho and Portland and everything. Love it, right? So when we were talking about Jamaica and the work that she's doing here, your name came up, and I said, you know what, I have to have you on the show because what you're doing here and in the West Indies is integral for the world. And I love your story, and I had to join the show today, so I appreciate you making the time. Thank you for being here. And yes, let's just get into it. You are a chef, and we've had chefs on the show before, but no one like you. So I got to ask you, sir, what inspired you to become a chef in the first place?
My journey to the culinary field was a bit unorthodox. A lot of my peers were chefs. If you notice, I identify first as an entrepreneur. Chef, you don't see the chef title until after you see entrepreneur and activist. So a lot of my peers grow up thinking about food, dreaming about food. They just love cooking for people. They cannot see a kitchen and not go into it. I started a company that started to hire chefs, which is the Reggae Chefs. That's the name of the company. And at some point, I recognized that in order to bolster that company, right, I myself had to be trained because I was hiring chefs, right? So it was a personal chef service, hiring chefs to carry out the service. And I realized that, you know what, in order to be able to understand fully what's happening in the company, I needed to get behind the scenes, get to school myself and know what chefs know, right? So that's how I got into the culinary field.
Okay. Now, I think that's integral because you have to know what you're talking about clearly before you bring anybody else on. So that makes complete sense, right? And, for most chefs, that at least the ones that I know, they like to cook. They like to serve people. They like to have people have family gatherings around food. They love the community that comes around food. They love bringing people together. And that's what inspires them. And it seems like for you, that was the same concept. You want to bring people in and use your expertise to do that. And now you have Reggae Chefs. And how did Reggae Chefs start in the first place? Because now it's a huge undertaking, but it had, small beginnings. So how did it start?
Yes, I love that you asked that because you know what you said prior is, of course, you need to know what you're talking about to bring people on. Let me tell you, my journey has been one big mess of trial and error, right? It has been, um, like I didn't learn the fundamentals of entrepreneurship traditional way, right? I'm literally the embodiment of just do it, even if you're not prepared, right? And so starting the Reggae Chefs, it never even occurred to me that, hey, I'm not a chef, right? What did occur to me is that what I was selling and what I wanted to sell was the preservation of Jamaican culture and the promotion of Jamaican culture. And you can't preserve or sell Jamaican culture without our culinary identity. right? And how I grew up, the people who embody our culinary identity the most in Jamaica are our grandparents, are the elders, and they're not trained chefs, but boy, are they chefs. Boy, do they know their food, right? And so that was the embodiment of the reggae chefs. Now, where did it start? Dr. Sean, let me tell you. Um, I came to America when I was 17, right? And that journey was followed by some challenges and hardships. And I could get into those if once you ask more details about those specific challenges I had, because I know it could be helpful to young people out there. But I experienced homelessness. Um, I was for a while I was an illegal immigrant, right? And that's as a young person, trying to figure out my way in New York City. I eventually found my way to Las Vegas, right? Where I had a friend staying. I said, listen, I've had enough of New York. This is way too hard for me. I'm coming out to Vegas. And it was in Las Vegas where I happened to go to my very first reggae concert. It was a show called Reggae in the Desert. And growing up in Jamaica, I've never been to a concert, right? And so reggae music, big stage setup, big artists setup. And it was the first time I, as a Jamaican, was seeing people consume my culture in mass numbers. I've never, and I had no idea how valuable Jamaican culture was globally. And as I walked around the venue, I saw people cooking Jamaican food. And a lot of these people were not Jamaicans, right? And so long before the reggae chefs, I end up feeling like, man, how are people qualified to cook our food and talk about our food without being from the culture? Like how does that work? Because then there's a disconnect in selling it. There's a disconnection in talking about it, right? And so it was that moment where I saw music, I saw food, and I saw people coming together, and I said, wow, this Jamaican culture has value. How could I package this in a very unique way? And it stayed with me. Remember, I went to Vegas because of hard times. I no money, nowhere to live. Just didn't know what my next move was going to be, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? I sat with the idea, just it just wouldn't leave me these three things: people, Jamaican music, Jamaican food. I know I didn't want to open a restaurant, right? Or play music in the restaurant. If you go to Flatbush or anywhere, any major city in America, you find a Jamaican restaurant. Um, and so after a few years, things got harder. And at some point, it occurred to me like one of the one of the things I'm really good at is talking about Jamaican culture. And one of the other things I'm good at is cooking. And so I called up my best friend and I said, do you think I could go into people's living rooms and cook their favorite Jamaican food and talk about Jamaica? And he thought I was nuts, Dr. Sean. He thought this was crazy that somebody would actually hire you to come into your living room to talk about Jamaica and to cook their favorite Jamaican dish. I never heard of it.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's what personal chefs do. But what I'm proposing is something more than a personal chef. It's not just to cook your meal, but to make you connect with that meal in a way that you've never connected before. And this is for every member of your family, from the child to the grandparent.
Mm.
So he said I was crazy, but he's a graphic designer, and I begged and pleaded with him to come up with a logo. And as he created the logo, I created the concept. What if a personal chef from Jamaica, authentic accent, deep knowledge of the culture, came into your living room, and from the minute you open your door, Jamaica was at your doorstep.
Mm.
You would be able to choose your favorite meal. Then you'll be able to, based on the family members or the type of event you're having, choose your type of entertainment. And our team of chefs would come out to your living room, cook your favorite meal, and teach you board games, tell Jamaican stories to kids, art and craft, language, you name it, right? What if that could happen in your living room? And I was on my last straw and I gave it a shot. The Reggae Chefs was born with two chefs. One did the cooking, one did the entertainment. And in 6 months, we were featured in the New York Daily News. That's the origin of the Reggae Chefs.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So a number of things come to mind because I know a number of people who are from the West Indies, including I was born here. My family is primarily from St. Thomas and Nevis, but I was born here, right? My parents are very proud to be West Indian. My grandmother, from St. Kitts or Nevis, really very proud to be West Indian. But my Jamaican friends are very, very proud to be Jamaican. And
Yes.
my boy Matthew Lynn, who runs the Jamaica Food and Drink Festival out there, he's been running that for a couple of years now. Same concept that you're talking about in terms of his idea of bringing that to Jamaica was to highlight the food and the culture because those things are so synonymous with what Jamaica stands for. And he said the same thing, looking around at the world from reggae music to, all the different dishes that come from Caribbean culture. It's everywhere. Everyone's trying to imitate it. Everyone's trying to be a part of it, to claim their names to it and to experience it. So you've just taken that and brought it to people's houses into the living rooms and made it so accessible for others to be able to experience the greatness that really comes with that. It's genius. It's great. And, I appreciate that from the perspective of someone who, as African Americans in this country, as I'm half African American, Afro-Caribbean, and half West Indian, there is a connection. But when it comes to the sole passion behind that connection, I don't have that all the time. I was born here, so it's a little different when you're from somewhere and you have that passion inside of you that you want to share with everybody else around you, and you found a way to do that in such a unique way that also just gives people the opportunity to have food and to really showcase the beauty that comes with that. So I applaud you for that, and I think, like you said, is right. Not showcasing that. Yes, you're entrepreneur first, but the chef thing is a sidebar. We've had people on the show who have been the masters of their crafts, right? Engineers and doctors and whatever else. And that becomes secondary to the greater picture of what they're doing in terms of their communities, in terms of their work. Yes, that's something that they do, that they are, yes, but the main thing is the bigger picture of entrepreneurship and community and engagement. So I'm just happy that you found a way to do that coming from meager beginnings, right? You talk about being homeless. I mean, that could be a show by itself. You talking about you going from not nothing, but from little to a lot. What inspired you, I guess, from those moments to say, you know what, let me keep pushing? Because I think a lot of people get frustrated when things go wrong. And it could be someone not having a job, or being unemployed still since COVID or whatever else. But you going from homelessness to this thriving community and company that you have now. What kept you going when you said, you know what, things are not going well, but I know, or I can see things happening in the future? What kept you moving?
I love the name of your show, Dr. Sean. Be More Today, because that could literally be my answer to your question, right? Which is my desire to be more every day. Doesn't matter where life found me, doesn't matter where I was or what level I was at. If I was at rock bottom, and I felt that way many times, my desire to be more has never left me. It has never left. Once that was planted in me as a child, that I have something to give to this world, it never left. It doesn't matter if I'm up, down, or in between. And I remember my aunt was my first teacher. She was an educator, and I was born with a very bad stutter, right? And so growing up, I didn't have much confidence. 6, 7. I can remember going home from primary school and saying I'm done with school because I could not speak in front of my peers.
Mm.
And my aunt said to me, and I clearly remember, and it never left me, that I was the best reader in my class. But I said, how can I be the best reader in my class if I can't even say my own name?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'm telling you, you are the best reader in your class. You only need to speak when you have something to say, and you have to feel it here. And ever since then, I've only been speaking, even in social settings, Dr. Sean, only when I have something to say. My stutter didn't go anywhere. I still have a stutter, but I only speak when I have something to say. And so my aunt taught me, you can be anything you want to be. You're the best, and that's since I was like 5, 6 years old.
Mm.
That confidence never left me, that I have something to give to this world. And it might look bleak right now, but I think tomorrow is going to be be better. I
Yeah.
think in a year it's going to be better. I just can't give up because I know I was not meant for this. I wasn't meant to ride the train 24 hours. This isn't it. This is a stepping stone. Maybe I need to learn this. Maybe I need to go through this, right? And you know what? I did. I did need to learn that.
You know what's funny about that? I often find people who are a little less restrictive in terms of their talking. That they always want to just say something about anything. And sometimes what they're saying is accurate, but most of the times it's just like them responding to whatever someone's trying to say. It's not very thought-provoking. It's not even, there's no content to it, right? They're just kind of speaking because they think that they have to say something. And I do find that those who take their time and speak when they have something profound to say, usually end up saying things that are great. Because what they're saying is meaningful and their words do matter. And I'm kind of the same way. You'll never find me in a situation where if you walk into a room, I'm probably the first one talking. It's usually not the situation at all. And I think that's why I have this show, because this show gives me at least a platform to say what I think people want to hear or whatever I think is content worthy for that time frame, right? 45 minutes, half an hour, whatever else, and then it's done. But for others, the verbal diarrhea like sometimes comes when people are just trying to make up for what they know or don't know.
Yes.
It's interesting, and I think that the fact that your family member shared that with you at a young age is something that is noteworthy that others can also take away from. It's not just about what you're saying. What you got to say has to be poignant. It should be productive. Just talking just to talk is not going to do anything. You want to have some content to that thing. So that's beautiful. And I'm just curious now, as we're talking about the great people you've had around you, and the meager beginning that you had to get to where you are now. You're doing so many things for your community, and I'm always curious when people decide to give back when they don't have to give back. A lot of entrepreneurs do what they have to do because they want to gain financial gain. They want to gain prestige and clout and followers and what have you. And some give back, but most don't. They try to build empires and they try to make sure they have legacies and all these different things. But those who give back are kind of few. So, reading your bio and learning what I know about you so far, you've been giving back in various ways. And Mission Food Possible seems to be one of them. So when Mission Food Possible came to you, what was really the driving factor behind that? Because this is a bigger initiative than just Jamaica. This seems to be a bigger initiative that the world can really benefit from. So give us some insight into this program that you're running.
Right. The irony, is that, you said the Reggae Chefs is this massive undertaking, right? Um, and I thought when I got into the Reggae Chefs and when Reggae Chefs started to become the platform that it has been, I thought, this is it. I have found the thing to take me to the next level. Little did I know that over a decade from the launching of the Reggae Chefs pale in comparison to the initiatives that I've launched, only because um, they are about a, a different way of engaging the community. And that's what make Mission Food Possible such a beast, if I can use that term. Um, the idea for Mission Food Possible, actually, the seeds for the idea happened while I was in culinary school. So I went to school to bolster the Reggae Chef's roster, right? To become a chef so I could be more knowledgeable. But while I was in culinary school, I realized I was seeing something very different than my classmates. I was seeing how I was understanding the chemistry of food. I was understanding how knife skills improve efficiency in food. I was learning how chefs see food. I was also learning my peers' perspectives of food. And because I didn't have that passion that my peers had, and I observed that they couldn't wait to get into the kitchen every day to cook and make something amazing. But I couldn't wait to see what we could turn a carrot into.
Mm.
Right? I couldn't wait to see how else I could use a potato to reduce waste. That just seemed to intrigue me much more. And I think it's because it's an entrepreneurial mindset, right? It's what I can do with less. How do I get more of this potato, right? And wasting less of it. What I was touching on, which without even realizing at that moment, was I was seeing food in a different way that chefs are inherently trained to see food if you want to see it, right? And for me, that's a skill. I mean, that's like magic. That's like working magic. One day I had a professor who came into class and he said, he was very excited about seeing the group, and he said, no, there's no better time to become a chef than now. The culinary field is exploding. And that stayed with me. I was like, okay, I'm in school at the right time, because the culinary field is a buzz. It's cool to be a chef. Around the same time, I happened to go to a United Nations conference, and I learned for the first time about the global hunger crisis. And because I'm in culinary school, that hit me like a bucket of ice water. Like, there are more people starving in the world, but my professor just told me that there are more people cooking than ever. So if there's more people cooking than ever, Dr. Sean, and there's more people starving in the world,
Right.
I just couldn't get it. It was just a big disconnect for me. And so I thought to myself, nah, that's crazy that these contradictions exists, you know? And I knew going back to school after I had the UN experience, I wasn't the same person. It never left me. And that's how ideas stay. Like, once I have ideas that are good, they actually haunt me. They haunt me in my sleep, right? Um, I eventually left school. The idea is with me, and I started to do another thing to strengthen the Reggae Chef's brand. I thought to myself, it's only a matter of time before people started to have competing businesses with the Reggae Chefs. So you know what? I'm going to blow them out the water. I'm going to start traveling the world looking for the Reggae Chefs, looking for Jamaican culture, and bringing it back to the business. That way I remain competitive and relevant. Here's what happened. I started to travel. I started to travel looking for Jamaican culture, and what I started to find in those travels is how people eat differently in every part of the world. So remember, the seeds were planted. I know that people are hungry around the world. I have these magical chef skills. I know I'm traveling around the world looking for Jamaican culture, but what I'm actually seeing and learning is how people are eating differently. The first thing I noticed was, as a Jamaican, I eat at least 12 staple foods all the time. If you go to Jamaica, go to anybody's house, on that dinner plate, around the country is about 12 different things you will find every day. The rest of the world, for the most part, only eat about 4 or 5 staple foods. So what does that say? How can we be hungry if the people aren't fully aware of what their brothers and sisters are doing on all corners of the world? Right? We've got people who are looking at a crop in one country and thinking it's only for shade. And we've got people in another country, in another part of the world, looking at that same crop is your national dish. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And so I said to myself, no, I think I have an idea. And I started documenting my travels um, on video, right? Showing it to people. I started to have events on my travels. And those events turned into dinner parties. And then those dinner parties turned into, what can I do with the knowledge that I've been getting? And I said to myself, you know what? One year I'm going to take a group of my chef friends. We're going to go to Jamaica. We're going to find crops that are underutilized, that I've seen overseas, that Jamaicans aren't fully aware of. And our chefs are going to work magic in the community one day with these crops that the people have never seen before, and teach them how to make creative, innovative dishes with the stuff that they know and see every day. And that project was called Mission Food Possible. That is where Mission Food Possible began. From that project, I created, me and my team created a rubric um, to assess how important a crop is to a community. And we call those crops MVPs, most valuable produce. And based on that rubric, we're able to have an idea of how important potato is to Ocho Rios. Have an idea how important breadfruit is to Jamaica. We're even able to have an idea how important is callaloo during a flood. Should we be even looking for callaloo during a flood? What crops are climate resistant or resistant to certain disasters? So that is what Mission Food Possible evolved into, this rubric that gave us as chefs more of a target crop to focus on when we go into a community. And that is the part that got the attention of Forbes magazine, right? That ability to target crops in communities specifically for either disaster relief or for extreme conditions like food security, right? That is where Mission Food Possible started.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think a lot of chefs think that way, right? A lot of chefs think about, well, what do you like? What do you like to eat? What do people in Mexico like to eat? People in Argentina like to eat, and they thrive on the nutrients and I guess the produce of those areas and try to cater to the cultural tendencies of those areas. But I haven't heard many people talking about sustainability, right? We do talk about deserts in terms of food, produce, and what's available in certain areas, whether they're economically separate or equal or high or low. We talk about those things, but I don't think a lot of people are talking about sustainability and like in a flood. If there's a flood happening, what can you and can't you eat? No one's talking about those things. So I think the concept that you have is brilliant because now you're talking about sustainability and trying to make sure that various areas, whether in Jamaica or otherwise, know what to eat all the time, whether times are high or they're low. And, with what is happening in terms of our economy and our world, in terms of global warming and everything else, it's affecting so many things. I think it's imperative to know what we can and can't eat, what we should be able to have access to and not have access to, and find creative ways to sustain our what should be varied food palettes and plates where you're talking about the thing that we should be having on our plates. So you're doing something I think is going to be sustainable for generations to come. We're talking about healthy eating and providing food for our children, our children's children. I think that's something that a lot of chefs are not doing. I look at all the Food Network shows, and there's so many shows out there just talking about umami and all the things that are just delicious to taste, and that's great. That's fantastic. But we're talking about hunger, eradicating hunger, and like you said, how is it possible that there's so many chefs out there, people are still hungry? I think that's where, at least for me, I admire your push towards fighting against this thing and eradicating poverty and hunger globally. Why is it so important to you? Because a lot of people can just say, you know what, I'm a chef, I want to cook, I want to make money, I want to do these things, it's great. I can have my businesses here, we can do a global thing, and that's all good. But for you, it seems like eradicating this poverty, hunger dynamic or this paradigm is something that you really want to do. And I'm just curious why it's so important for you. Is it because you were homeless at a point in time and you know what that feels like? Or is it because you just have a greater appreciation for what you've seen based on where you've been in your life? What pushes you to do this?
My response is threefold. It's a great question, Dr. Sean. One, um, if you find yourself homeless, chances are you're also food insecure, right? Um, my experience with hunger and food insecurity was brought to the forefront while living in America. I was born poor in Jamaica.
Right.
I was born poor in Jamaica. And once I started to understand the inner workings of food insecurity, I realized I was food insecure there as well. But it looks very differently in the Caribbean. It looks different. And so for me, my first response to that question is I know what it's like to not have food to eat. I know what it's like to not know where your next meal is coming from. I have intimate knowledge of that. And I love children. And so what keeps me up is I don't, if I can make one less child, children cannot efficiently communicate sometimes what they're feeling. And the younger they are, the worse it is, right? So the younger they are, and they are having stomach pains, or they're hungry, or they're not having nutritious meals, they can't express that. And so as an as a pre as a teen or as an adult, me feeling those pains and able to withstand it and go to bed, I think to myself, there's a child somewhere, there are children in this world who's going through this and they're not as strong as me. They can't understand what's happening, right? And so for me, it's the fact that I know what it feels like, and I've dedicated my life to ensuring that I do my part to minimize or limit the people who feel those pains or go through that. Second, um, I want to show my children that I hear this, that they can be more, Dr. Sean. It's important to me that my children and the children that come in contact with me, so my nephews, my nieces, my friends' children, that I'm the adult that consciously or subconsciously they see, that tells them indirectly or directly that you can be more. This doesn't have to be it. You can strive for something. You can discover your passion and you can go for it. And the proof. You have a proof in front of you, right? And so once I recognize that that also drove me, I realized I can't stop. I can never give up. I have to see it through, because as far as I can go is as far as maybe they can go,
Mhm.
right? Um, and my third reason is, ever since I was born, ever since I had sense. Again, I told you my first teacher was my aunt. She successfully planted in me that I am I'm the exception. You know, she successfully gave me that idea, and I guess this is why adults and it's so important into what we pour into children. Um, I've always known and felt. People ask me where my self confidence comes from. How are you so brave to take this on? Because failure is not my deterrent. Failing isn't what deters me, right? It's not doing. And I was told by someone I trusted as a child that you can be anything you want to be. You have the potential to contribute to this world in a grand and great way. And I believe it. I believed it when I was 10. I believed it when I was 15. I believed it when I was homeless. I believe it now that things are moving. I believed it when Mission Food Possible featured in Forbes magazine. I wasn't surprised because I said so a couple of years before. A
Mm.
couple of years before that, I told people, anybody who would listen, that I'm going to be featured in Forbes magazine.
Mm.
And so those are the things that drive me.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And people always say they're visionaries, right? Oh, I'm a visionary. And people, they may be, but being able to see a situation where a situation looks totally different from what you're experiencing right now, and being able to speak those things into existence. I'm a big proponent of that. I do believe that you can believe and have faith in whatever you're trying to do. And if you put the work into it, things will happen. I mean, I think that's something that's ingrained in us as people of color. It's ingrained in our society. It's ingrained in our culture. And although it is not always um, celebrated as such, right? Because they always show not the great things that we do, but the not so great things that we do. But it is true. There are so many of us who are doing exactly what you're doing, going out there and being the change and then spreading that love to others. And you're doing that in a variety of ways. And I love the fact that you continue to look at the next generation to bring them forward. My 8-year-old daughter and her cousin, my niece, this summer, we gave them a whole bunch of stuff. They had so much fun. We went to various places and parks and whatever else. And whenever we went out to eat, you know, um, they're so picky
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. And they're picky because they've had a variety of things they've been exposed to. They've been exposed to so many great foods. And living in New York, as you already know, anything you want, you can find. It's no problem. You can get anything you want, any kind of cuisine, whatever else. So my daughter is the quintessential very catered to daughter in the sense that she's like, Daddy, I want this for dinner tonight. You know, can we Uber eat it? Can we make it? Can we whatever else? And we try to do those things, but there's sometimes we say, you know what, we're gonna have whatever we have in the house. And the the anger that comes from her when those things happen is hilarious to me because she's like, well, I don't want to eat this and I don't want to eat that. And I remember, and you're probably the same age bracket as I am, you know, whatever your parents gave you, that's what you ate. You ate
Yes.
whatever they put on the plate and you were appreciative for that thing. And that's how you learn to appreciate stuff because you recognize that or you saw that whatever we have is what we have. We didn't have all the things at our disposal. We didn't have 1,000 Uber Eats and seamless accounts. That, oh, no. What we have in the cabinet, that's what we're having tonight. And we're going to probably have that tomorrow night as well. And there was a cultural appreciation that came with that. And I think this generation of kids coming up now lacks that because there's so much access to everything and any cuisine and anything that's around them. So I think you doing what you're doing is poignant because it will bring back what you and I grew up on, the appreciation for what we have, the appreciation for the cultural things that we can create, you know, in our cabinets. And there's so many things that we can do if we put our minds to it and not just fall so easily into what society does around us. So I'm glad you're bringing it back. And, you know, I think your love for children, it seems, has sparked into the author community. As a fellow author, I know you have a couple books out there about coronavirus and also about food security. Talk to us a little bit about the books you've written that are for kids.
Yeah. Um, when the pandemic hit, one of the things I did like every other parent was in early 2020, school started to close and my son started to ask questions, Daddy, why is school closing? What's going on?
Right.
And I had to try to explain to my son PJ what was taking place. As I was having the conversation, I said to myself, well, how many other parents are struggling to answer these questions from these kids, And so my best friend is an artist, right? We've known each other since, like, we've been best friends since we're like 11 years old. And over the years, as we both had children, we've always played with ideas that, hey, I'm good at writing, you're good at drawing, why not create something? And it just never materialized. So I called him up and I said, hey, I just wrote this conversation I had with PJ.
Mm.
If I turned it into something, can you illustrate it? And he said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And that conversation with PJ turned into Coronavirus Get Out of Here. His son and my son were very instrumental in the wording, in the conversation, in proofreading, in editing, all of that. And he created the images. And we, we went to Amazon to publish. And interestingly, Dr. Sean, Amazon had, the last pandemic was over 100 years ago. Amazon did not have any language on publishing anything related to a pandemic. Our request was rejected, and literally within 24 hours, there was a small print that says we cannot publish anything related to, right? And so, okay, cool. We found another publisher who, saw the content for what it is and not so much for politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we published. And it was an exhilarating experience because I don't know why the universe had us little Jamaican guys publish a book on a potentially a massive topic. And once we started to promote the book, we got a lot of online hate because school started to close in February and we published Coronavirus Get Out of Here at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got mails stating that we must be involved in coronavirus. We are despicable for trying to profit off of. Now, I made it clear that all proceeds were going to go to fighting coronavirus.
Oh, wow.
None of that mattered, right? They said they're not, and so we had to endure that. And it's the first time we ever got online hate like that. And then something crazy happened. The United Nations reached out to us and they said, we are looking for a children's book. We're trying to find resources to give to families, and there are no children's books.
Right.
and we found your book online, and they asked me about the origin and the backstory behind it. I told them I haven't profited off of the book. We had sales, all 100% sales have gone to fighting coronavirus, like I said in the very beginning. They also recognized that I wasn't just a brand new person on the scene. I was already an activist who happened to write this book. And so
Mm-hmm.
they knew that my work had authenticity and integrity behind it. And coronavirus took off. And the next thing I knew, India took the book and distributed the book in their school system.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh wow, of all the things I could have written about, this is the thing, you know.
Yeah.
The next year, as coronavirus has taken hold of most of the planet, food security became the biggest topic on the heels of coronavirus. And I said to my friend, I said, we did coronavirus get over here. Now maybe we should go into what we know about, right? Maybe we should go into what we're experts at. And so I wrote my first food security children's book called Dasheen Island, and he illustrated, and it was also a success.
Mm.
Um, and that's when the Jamaican government said, "Hey, we don't have any content like this. We love what you're about. We love what it stands for, and we want to distribute this to our primary school age children." So,
Mm.
and Dasheen Island is a part of a collection called the Food Security Tales. Our next title should be coming up at the end of the year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. And you know what? It's great because what got you in the door was your passion to help.
Yes.
And then what expanded the door was again your expertise, you being a chef. The same way your whole journey has been kind of the same, right? Your passion was the one that kind of just opened the door, and then your expertise kind of was the driving factor behind it. So that's great. And you know, I think the lesson behind that is that, especially during that time when it was just so crazy, our kids needed something to
Hmm.
be able to just get through the time. I remember talking to my daughter about why she was home, and it was a hard time. And you know very well because you have your PJ. It was a hard time. So anything that was out there, whether it was books or resources or videos, those things were so helpful. So I appreciate you writing that.
Yes.
And you know, Shep, I have a couple more questions for you, but um, I'm curious now what we can do, right? As people who are non-chefs, maybe they're activists who are listening, maybe they're non-activists who are listening, maybe they're people who just like to eat food, who want to kind of help out the same way you're helping in terms of all your endeavors. How can we as everyday non-chefs help to achieve the goals that you're setting out here for eradicating poverty, for increasing hunger globally? How can we help out in any of these endeavors?
I love that you're asking that, Dr. Sean. So there are a number of things, right? First, all of the world's problems are interconnected. All of the globe's problems are interconnected. So we look at food insecurity, and we look at climate change. We look at global warming. We look at food waste. We look at poverty. We look at crime. All of the world's problems are interconnected. And you know, when I say this, sometimes the people who aren't seeing the bigger picture, they all look separate, but they're not separate. And so we can become better versions of ourselves, responsible people in our community. We can start looking for what our social purpose is. I believe every one of us have the potential to be a revolutionary disguised as something. So you're a revolutionary. You're a physical therapist, Dr. Sean.
Yes, sir.
You're a revolutionary disguised as a physical therapist. Um, I'm a revolutionary disguised as an entrepreneur and as a chef, as a speaker, and as an author. And so there's a revolution waiting to happen in your field that you're capable of starting, right? And so for everyone, from the stay-at-home mom to the teacher to the firefighter to the activists to the football players to athletes, we're all revolutionaries or potential revolutionaries disguised as something. I know that I say it, you will see it. You'll see athletes that do more than just run and jump, right? You know some of them. They speak
Absolutely.
up. You know actors and actresses, well, actors that do more than just act. They are revolutionaries disguised as what they do for a living. What you do for a living isn't necessarily what you are.
Right.
It could be, but isn't necessarily, right?
Right.
And so start there, I think. Start finding the revolutionary act that you can do every day and consistently to do, right? To do.
Mm-hmm.
More specifically, in my work, people who are not chefs can reduce food waste. Learn how to use more of the foods that you're cooking with. Food waste contributes to food insecurity. It contributes to global warming,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can almost guarantee you, Dr. Shan, that you are not utilizing all of the foods efficiently that you cook in your kitchen. I don't,
No.
right?
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
work in progress. But when you start to reduce food waste, that's something that we all can do in our own kitchens, right? Another thing we can do is believing and seeing the weather patterns changing, seeing people in parts of the world that are literally going from having food to no food because last year was a harvest and this year there's no harvest.
Mm.
Climate change is real. So what foods can we eat that are climate friendly, right? Those are
Mm.
some of the things that we can do from home. We can find the people who have their heart on the line in being on the front line and supporting those organizations, right? We can find the people who mean what they say and say what they mean and actually doing the action and support those people. We spend um, what it costs for Mission Food Possible to do our work in Jamaica. I see people spend that one money on a pair of shoes. It hurts me, but you're able to do whatever you want to do with your money.
Mm-hmm.
But I said to myself, I wonder if that person knew that just half of that could literally feed 3,000 people. It
Mm-hmm.
would change 3,000 people's lives forever. Because we don't just feed people, Dr. Shan. That's what the soup kitchens do. And, we teach people to forever look at food differently.
Mm.
So before us, if you're in your community and you struggle to find food to eat, when we come to your community and show you the different foods that's on the trees and what to do with them, you would even teach that to the next generation.
Mm.
What does it cost to do that? And so the people who are doing the work, we need the support, either rolling up your sleeves to help us get the work done or helping us get the work done, contributing to the people who are doing the work.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're here for the fight. I appreciate the charge. And for those of you who are listening, there's so much more that we have to do. He just outlined basically what you can do at home to make sure that food insecurity is something that you can be a part of and to help eradicate that. So go out there, do what you have to do. Look into your cabinets and your refrigerators. Let's be more mindful of what we're using, consuming. Um, and let's be the change we keep talking about wanting to be. I mean, Peter, you're doing some great work. And my last question for you is very, very simple. Be more today is a movement. It's so many things, and you're the embodiment of that and what you're doing for your community in New York and in Jamaica and across the globe. But that phrase is different for everyone. And I'm just curious for you, when you hear the phrase "be more today," what does that phrase mean to you?
Um, Before I answer that, there's one more thing that I think people at home can do that I left out. Support local farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Buy locally as much as you can. Make sure your food is traveling the least amount of time to get to your dinner plate. That's a big deal. It goes a long way when it comes to food waste, when it comes to climate friendly products, and when it comes to um, ordinary people doing something impactful, is finding where your food is coming from and getting that food as local as possible.
Yeah.
When I hear the term "be more," Dr. Sean, um, I think about purpose. Yeah, so many of my friends are elders, right? And every time I've had the opportunity to be with one of my friends who are transitioning,
Mm-hmm.
and because my friends are in their 80s and stuff like that, um, I get to hear, or I tend to feel like they're entrusting me with information sometimes. Um, I hear the secrets, and I don't need to, like I don't always need to fail to learn. I can take advice from people who have lived 40 more years than me on earth, who've said, my greatest regret is not discovering my purpose. I never knew what my purpose was. Or somebody will say, I'm good because I knew what my purpose was. I discovered my purpose. Over time, I've realized how important it is to know what your purpose is and how sad it could be if you've lived, especially if you've lived a long life and never discovering what that purpose was. Why is that important? Is because I believe you can only be more if you know what you're supposed to be. If you don't know what you're supposed to be, you're going to be just the bare minimum. That's the fear. That's the concern. Or be less than what you potentially could be.
Mm-hmm.
And so where does it start to be more? Purpose. What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Right? Once you discover that, I believe that everyone can start being more a better version of themselves. Now, for people who are having a hard time doing that, don't despair. Finding your purpose is the journey of life. So I'm not meaning to make sound like you're a failure if you are 20, 25, 40, 45, and you don't know what your purpose is. The whole point is that at the moment you discover that you're supposed to have one, it's a journey finding the purpose. That is the purpose of life, I believe. And when you are searching for your purpose, when you are prepping, well, how did you start this interview? You said it's in the prep work. It's not in the destination. And so finding your purpose, Dr. Sean, is a metaphor for the prep work. And that allows you to be more.
That's it. That's it. Peter dropping nuggets on y'all. Hope y'all taking notes. Listen. It's been a great show, Peter. I appreciate you so much. And where can people follow you and all of your endeavors on social media or otherwise?
Instagram, Facebook, Peter Ivey official, Mission FoodPossible on any platform. Our latest enterprise is P3 Culinary Kits. You can find it on social media, P3 Culinary Kits. And if for more information, because social media is limited, a quick Google search on either my name or Mission FoodPossible, Dasheen Island, the Reggae Chefs, or P3 Culinary Kit, and people will find a ton load of information about the work that we're doing. And Dr. Sean, I wish we had more time to talk about P3 Culinary Kit because that is truly the game changer. But maybe there's a part 2 coming up.
We're gonna have a part 2, Peter. You got too many nuggets to share with the people, and I think the beauty of what you're doing is it's multi-tiered. You're hitting us from what we can do in terms of our own personal gain, in terms of food and consumption, but also how we can use those same things to change the world. And I think if everyone did that in their own regard, like you said, whether it's physical therapy or legal world or what have you, if we all had that same mindset to do that, we all together would make the world a better place. So
Yes.
I got to have you back on to talk more about P3 and some other things, and maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point in time for sure. But I appreciate you so much, Peter, for being on the show today. You've made this episode 1 for the books. Most important question, sir. So my last meal, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. If we had to have one last meal, right? My last meal would be Hellshire fish from Hellshire with my festival. I don't know what it is about Hellshire fish, whatever it is. Every time I go there, I'm like, this is my last meal. I can leave right now. I'm done. So I'm curious for you, sir, what would be your last meal if you had to have one last meal? We don't want to have a last meal. We talk about food security, whatever else. But if you had to have one last meal, what would that last meal be?
Man, I hate to be this guy because my answer is not that sexy, Dr. Sean, but I will give you what you're looking for if I could give you the unsexy answer.
Yes, sir.
So my favorite dish is curry goat and white rice. Right? So that's always going to be a hit. If that's the only thing I could eat, bring it on.
Staple.
But in reality, my last food is so intimate for me now at this stage with what I do. I love sitting with people who have a story to tell me
Mm,
and eating whatever it is that they like to eat in their homes and listening to that story, whatever that is. I'm willing to try almost anything, right? As long as I can hear a good story about culture, history, legacy from someone who wants to share a dish with me. That's actually my favorite meal.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big. I hear you. I hear you. All right, cool. We're gonna have a part two. We're gonna have to do it. I'm gonna book you for another show. We'll talk about P3 and get into all those things. But Peter Ivey, it's been great having you on the show. I really appreciate you. And folks, you already heard what he said. He said so many things, and the quote from today is so poignant. It's not the show, it's the prep for it. No matter your field or your endeavor, your real success is based on what you put into it. So, like Peter said, put some work into it. You saw his story from going from small beginnings to big time success, Forbes magazine, so many things. And it all became because he had the vision to get this thing done, not just for himself, but in helping others. And you saw by helping others, he was blessed himself and was so successful and continues to be successful by giving back. So, whatever your field is, whatever it is, make today the day where you say, you know what, I'm gonna be more today and give back so that I can be better for myself, my success, my legacy, and for the legacy of those around me. Because when it all comes down to it, everybody eats. Everybody eats, and you're one of those people as well. So, Peter, thank you so much for being on the show. And folks, as you already know, follow me more today. Follow Peter on all his sites and continue to take your steps of greatness to be the best version of you. We'll see you next time. Peace.